All right, we are now live, and we're just a little early. So this has actually never happened. I don't think we've ever been early before. So that's good. That's a good start. I like that start. so, so there we are, 1 o'clock. So welcome.
Hear that, Rita?
There we are. Welcome to our Red Feather Mind by Spirit Facebook Live event. I'm Christopher McClure. Today we had two very special guests, Rita Rose and Jana Pesek, who are most recently the creators of the Outsider Art Tarot. And we want to catch up today to learn more about this just incredible deck. It's really an art piece unto itself. We were talking a little bit beforehand. It's just really gorgeous, and I'm excited to talk more about it and share with the world a little bit more here. This is our celebration week for all things Outsider Art Tarot, as I'm talking about. But we got a little background here on Jana and Rita. So Rita Rose is a writer and teacher and self-taught artist and mystery school initiate and a tarot practitioner. She's had a lifelong interest in magical and shamanistic traditions and often explores these topics in her creative writing and her artwork. And for many reasons, Rita has always considered herself an outsider. Currently makes weird art, enjoys her sometimes weird family, and spends time with creative, rebellious friends, and teaches legal writing at Chapman University School. Jana Pesek is an award-winning photographer as well as an artist, graphic designer, and creative visionary. Jana took Rita's original tarot art and transformed it into the bold and colorful cards that make up the Outsider Art Tarot. And I'm so glad to have you both here. This was actually, so it's great to have you both. I don't always get to have two creators in one place, so I'm super excited about that. And to talk about this amazing deck and how to use it and this fun stuff. So basically, how did this come together? Let me start with that. What's the story behind how this came together? So I'll let you just go with that. Rita, you want to start on your story, how that kind of came together a little bit?
Yeah, sure. The art in particular.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it starts with I've always been really interested in magical traditions. I've always loved, when I was younger, I always read all about the Greek mythology and Roman mythology, and just magic.
Right.
It has always fascinated me.
Sure.
And I started studying the tarot in 2013.
Okay.
With a private tarot tutor, and I learned a lot about Kabbalah and astrology and tarot. And the deck itself happened when I was just coming back from a really difficult time taking care of my mother, who had leukemia. And then a friend of ours, Jana and I, invited us to join her art workshop.
Okay.
So I started painting. I had never painted before in my life. I think the last time I had done art was maybe kindergarten. And
Yeah.
but I loved it right away. I loved it. It was a creative expression. I've always been a writer. I've never really been a visual person, but Jan and I ended up going to a workshop by this outsider artist named Jesse Reno. And it really, really sparked something in me. I was struggling with finding a style or my own style when I was in this workshop with our friends. But when I went to this workshop, the way that Jesse taught us how to let the art come in was just so freeing. It was basically just doing an underpainting of anything, of symbols, of colors, of splashes of design. And so it was just such a magical way for me. And I started seeing creatures come out of these underpaintings.
Yeah.
And Jana was at the workshop too. And Jana was one of the first people to come over and recognize that the creatures that were coming out looked like they were tarot figures. So anyway, Jana, you want to take the rest of the story from there?
Yeah, well, I was struggling, with the class, but watching Rita all of a sudden go from, you know, terrible painter to all of a sudden creating these magical
Oh,
creatures.
yeah.
It was actually miraculous to me because I went and saw these archetypes. I saw, a television set and the symbolism of things. I saw lovers. I saw the fool. I mean, that first painting class, she was already painting the deck. And I basically was like, you're painting a deck. And if you want any help to actually create a deck and graphically put it together, I'm there. Just call me. And so I think we put it, she finished painting it and well, we'll get to that later, but that's what we did. I was I don't know. It was just amazing to see somebody like literally witness somebody download something and then create something that
She's overcome.
magical results that I thought I really needed to be a part of that. I needed to be a part of that kind of flow and magic. And honestly, I also wanted to do it because I was afraid of the tarot. Tarot cards really made me nervous. So having worked with Rita on that, it changed a lot for me, also with regards to tarot. So, yeah.
That's interesting. I was going to ask a little bit about your own tarot story, Jana, because I don't know it as well. And so, you want to explain a little bit more about that? What's your background, through that is, or you were aware of it, but you recognized it though. So you must have had that understanding of the tarot. To say, hey, when you saw this manifest, that you were able to jump in and say, hey, this is this, right?
Yes, well, I'm very, very aware of archetypes. I've been an art director, graphic designer for 30 years, and so my world is colors, symbols, especially symbolism, right? And I see it in everything and everywhere. And archetypes are such a huge part of the subconscious and the consciousness of humanity. So I've always been fascinated by that. But the tarot itself, I was given a very old deck. The tarot itself, I would look at them and I saw so much negativity, like it was, to me, there'd be, people being stabbed with swords and things being broken and people crying. And I just thought, anytime I would play, would work with the tarot, is like, please don't let me get one of the bad cards. You know what I mean? And there's like 75%, at least from what I thought was bad. But when working with Rita, I really started to see the multi layers of it. And when all of a sudden I pulled a card with her and it was a tower, she was able to show me that this is revealing to you that this is what you've got to work with. If things are crumbling down, it's for you to be aware to work with that. And so it ends up being this conversation in a way with the universe. And so, anyway, since then I've been working with the tarot, and it's been incredibly insightful and unbelievably accurate, to be honest. So I'm a believer now. I mean, in a real way, I think all of us want to believe in magic, and then tell ourselves not really, it's just for fun, and so it's a very fine line, right? But there's something very powerful with the cards, and positive. I see the positivity in the tarot, much more than I in fact, all of the negative cards are just lessons of being able to shine the light into your shadow. So I really understand that now.
Interesting. Yeah. So you're saying it's really become a tool of empowerment for you. You've
100%
turned around 100%. There. So I wanted to just mention, you were talking about the tower card, and I've been playing with the deck, so not in order, or else I would have found the actual card. But yeah. So it's actually I wouldn't say comforting, but it's an approachable tower card. Let me put it that way. So it's a way that, just like what you're saying, is just like, it's everything's going to be okay. This doesn't look great, but you're still going to be supported. There's something in there that is different. And actually, even within, I'll just flip right to the books there too. I like how you have the traditional meanings, the story a little bit behind it. But I was going to talk about this a little bit later, but we'll just flow with it. The artist download. And I want to go back to your download there. So I can't tell you how many times I hear that term, where it's like, I don't know where this came from, but I just downloaded it. So what was that? What was that like?
Yeah, as I was mentioning, I've been a creative writer my whole life. I've written plays and screenplays and poems, and whenever I got into that field, it feels like a field, a muse, a divine connection. It literally feels like hours can go by, and I don't know, and I'm just in a flow. I'm in a flow with divine, and that's how it felt when I was doing these cards. It was I would just go, and hours would disappear, and I would feel like I was working with maybe my muse or my daemon, but it definitely felt like it wasn't me alone. I was being guided, I was being directed, I was communicating with these cards, and often they would come in and I would get a hit. I would get a hit about what this card was trying to tell me, what this energy, what this archetype was trying to tell me. And so, yeah, it was really, really powerful. It was really, it felt like a collaboration with the divine.
Fascinating. Yeah, no, that's a wonderful experience to have, and a level to get to as well, and tapping into that. And actually, it goes back to something that you were saying, Jana, too, that reminded me of like things that I've experienced too. So the whole download thing for me, that's more like, oh, I'll have an idea about a product or something maybe, and that's why I have a whiteboard back here. Even this morning, I was like, oh, this thing. And so that's how it happens for me. But then to your point, Jana, too, you said the nature of the tarot being like, you didn't equate how to approach it or negativity or whatever. And I just kind of wrote down like spiritual unease, which is not a negative thing. And so just to illustrate, for myself personally, like when I was a young child, I was always really like intimidated by like crows. I always didn't like them. I get this like weird feeling of things. But then later on, I realized, oh, that's, I kind of adopted it as my spirit animal for some reason, because it's like, oh, there's something powerful there. And it happened in a couple other things, with that. It's just like, okay, that unease isn't necessarily negative, but it's pointing you in a certain direction. So you're having that, emotional response because you're trying to be, you're something wants to teach you something, or something come through you in a sense, so there's two, so it's part of what you're saying, the download. So like one leads to the other, perhaps, the recognition of what's happening and then letting it flow through too, which it appears is what happened with this deck here. And so I would say, which is it's a magical story, really. Speaking of magical stories, I wanted to talk a little bit about how this actually came to us as well. So I get a lot of proposals and things, and wonderful, creators sending their sometimes their life's work in. So it's a really it's an honor to be able to see these projects and things as they come in. And there's one that came in. It's probably about maybe 2 years ago now, and it came in a little red envelope. And I was like, oh, this is interesting, And so it was, and I set it to the side, and all these different things, and it was actually on a shelf, and it wasn't in the normal place that I put proposals. It was in the shelf. This is little, and it's like nice little letter and things. But I didn't look at it closely. And then I went through my queue of projects and things, and I was like, oh yeah, this little thing and this little envelope. It's just like since it was red, it really stood out on the shelf. It was just like, oh, look at that thing. It's like, oh, I need to look at that. And I opened it up, and the cards, they were like business card size, weren't they? They were like they were small. They were on the small side, maybe like a little normal size. And I started looking at these. I'm like, wait a second. There's really something here. So old fashioned. I mean, the way it came through, it wasn't like, it was, I think was it a handwritten note even or something, or I don't know what it was, but it was it just speaks to the nature of the deck itself. Even it's just like very, this is what we have, it might not be formal. This is who we are. This is what we're bringing. And even that presentation, and you said it was Jana's, idea maybe to do, it worked. Because it got definitely that that extra spark of interest, really, and you just opening it and really looking into it, and we do get proposals that have from a variety of artists, and outside of art is can be a variety of different, coming from different angles to it, and so but this really and not every outsider style of art would work as tarot. Is basically what I'm saying. No matter how good it is, but this does, and it's hard to explain, empirically why, but it just does. So, but it's a really cool story, and I'll always remember it too. It's actually probably one of the most memorable proposals that I've gotten. As far as like, oh yeah, that one, because it's neat. It could have been like what could have happened is like a book could have gotten on top of it, and it could have been, I hate to say that, it could have been like a year later. It's like, oh wait. You never know. So, but that didn't happen, and the rest is history. And here we are, outside our art tarot. So now working together and making this into a tarot, like what was that creative? What was that like? Did you enjoy the creative process, bring it together, and could you go into that how that came? Because 78 cards. I mean, that's a big project. Yeah, Jana. So
you want to take that, Jana? Oh, I think she got frozen.
That'll happen. Look.
Oh,
yeah, did you want me to answer?
You got frozen for a second.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to speak just a little bit to the red envelope real quick. I just believe that if you do something with love, then the love resonates. And I think that when you take the time to package, I mean, this is my work. I do packaging and marketing, right? And I know that you would have been overwhelmed. We knew that you would be overwhelmed with things. And we knew this was special because these creatures came through. So our job is really just to be vehicles, right? And so we wanted to bring it with love to your desk, right? And so anyway, so I'm really happy that it touched you because that's really truly what this deck is about. But your question was, how was it to work together?
Yes, kind of to bring this together, that process. Yeah.
Well, first of all, it was awesome because, I really got to know this woman, Rita, who's now, one of my best friends, to work with someone and incredibly, intellectually, incredibly fast. I mean, the woman has a photographic memory and it blows my mind. But she also trusted me because she would bring her paintings to my house and we would photograph them, because I really wanted to get I really wanted to make sure that in the print, it would translate as close to the original as possible. And that's not always easy to do because you can't always control a press, but you can't control the original. And I know enough about that to do that. So she trusted me to do my job, and she really counted on me to have an eye for the details. And I was inspiring. I was just her biggest fan. She would come with these characters and I'm like, more. And then when she had to do the minor arcana, at first we weren't even going to have figures for that. And all of a sudden she's like, oh my God, she goes, we need figures. And so she had to go back and do suddenly 16 paintings in like a month or two. And,
I haven't heard that. Wow.
She did it. And she'd bring these paintings over and I couldn't believe the energy that, was sustained. And, for me, each character kept getting better. Like the Queen of the Queen of Wands on the cover of the box, for instance, her the art is to full bleed, so you can't see it to the edges, but she's actually wearing sneakers, and I think details like that for me is what really helped me again absorb tarot in a way that her creatures in a way were scared and which is a very human aspect. They were brave, which is also a human aspect. They were quirky and strange, and there was humor. And so it really made everything palatable. And because there was so much texture, there's always something more to look at. So during the process, I did my job, which was organize things and have detail and really make sure everything is well margined and done with quality. But the process was fun because of the inspiration that Rita and her work that she kept bringing, to me to work with. So it was easy.
Yeah, and if I can just add, the same thing is, I think it was a matter of incredible trust between us. It really, I mean, Jana is an artistic powerhouse for sure, and she really designed the minor arcana. I gave her the artwork, and she designed all of the pips in the orders. We talked about the traditional meaning of those pips, and she put them in a way that was aesthetically pleasing to her, and that what mattered, that made sense to her, and they're just incredible. Her attention to detail is incredible, just in terms of the texture of the outside back of the cards and what needed to go in the back of, the triangles, and making sure that they lined up so that people could do the
Yes.
reverse pulls and not know whether, when the cards were front face or, forward facing or reversed.
Mm-hmm.
So it was an incredible, definitely a deepening of our friendship when we first took the workshop together at Jesse Reno's. We hadn't known each other for very long, and again now we've gone through so many ceremonies and prayers over these cards and readings of these cards together, and creating them, photographing them, designing them, and it's just really just been an honor and a privilege to work with her.
That's fantastic, really. And it's that kind of experience will either go, one or two ways.
Right.
Keeping a relationship, or like you'll never want to see each other again. So thankfully, you're both here. So that means it was the former rather than the latter. So that's great. Now you're saying that those 16 cards there, which so you had to illustrate, were like the court cards, like
the court cards. Yes.
Uh-huh.
So once I was done with the major arcana,
yes,
I knew we had to do the minor arcana, but I hadn't thought about the court cards.
Right.
And so I thought we were done, and I realized that we had to go back and do, I had to go back and do some court cards, and it's difficult because for me, most of the time, most of these cards, with the exception of 2 cards, most of these cards I didn't know what I was painting at the time. I just did an underpainting, the creature would come out, and then it would let me know which card it was. So, but finally, when I knew how to do the court cards, I a couple of times I had to force myself to do a court. Oh, I need that.
Right, I was about to say, like, force down. How does that work? Like, normally it's like, oh, you got to let it go, and like, it's like, now you like force it.
Right, and there were 2. Exactly. So the only 2 times I had to force myself to okay, I have to do a Knight of Pentacles. I had to do those paintings several times because it didn't come out. It wasn't organic until it finally came organic. So I realized that I had to mostly let them, they had to come in on their own. They had to come in voluntarily. Yeah. So that was an interesting process.
In fact, Rita, the world card was the one that card. Was the last card of the major.
That was the final card.
Was she's like, oh, what am I gonna do? How's it gonna work out? And I was saying to her, don't worry, it's gonna come through when it needs to. Like it's and so I do think that would help. Is I would remind her to trust the process because we just had to, Right. The way that this started came from a very flowing place. And so as intense as we both are in our worlds and our jobs, one thing that was consistent is our support in reminding each other to stay in the flow of what, this work is in general in the mystical world. And so we really needed to stay true to that part. Even when I was doing, she's talking about the pips, it wasn't just aesthetic, it was symbolic. I needed to, you're just moving around same object and repeating it a few times, but what is it doing? Is there pressure? Is there release? Is there growth? Is there stagnation? I still had to try to reflect that even in the simplest, most simple way. So, we really tried to honor the tradition of the original tarot all along, as well as staying open to, future inspiration.
Wow. So it really does sound like a labor of love, in those different aspects. Really, were you holding something up, Rita?
I was just showing some of the pip cards that she designed.
Right.
Because they're just incredible. They're just, as she was saying, there's meaning to all of them, and she and I had to work really closely together on these.
Yeah, and it sounds like having you both together was essential, really, to the work itself. Kind of like I was thinking like Elton John and Bernie Taupin. You have one has to have the other, kind of like make the song work. So so kind of like that, to be able to say, okay, one brings something, one brings another, and you make magic that way. to really bring that together. And so it's really fantastic, you know, even that aspect of it, how that, you know, worked and how it came together it's really incredible and amazing. So like now for you both, now do you both read tarot yourself? Now do you like, you know, for inspiration for yourself? Do you do like for yourselves or for other individuals, or you know, what your no?
I do it both for myself. I mean, Jana and I have done readings together, and I've, you know, done some readings for my children. But I use it as really a divination or a connection to understand what's going on in my life in that moment, or to kind of understand how to face a challenge. So it's mostly for my, you know, largely for myself. I do a 3-card pull. I don't do it every day. Sometimes I go through periods where I do it every day for a while, and sometimes I'll go, you know, weeks without doing a pull. But it's largely for myself.
Okay, all right. Jana, what's your experience with using tarot?
Again, primarily for myself. I'm not a daily card puller of any deck. I mean, I have several decks. This, you know, I actually, when we got this box, I recently did the Celtic cross pull for the first time in the history of any time I've had tarot. And I just did it last week because I'm going through a really intense personal situation. And I have been finding myself going back to the positions and really trying to listen. What's the lesson of possible near future, temporary? What are some of the fears that I need to keep in mind? And it's indescribable how helpful it's been to really kind of show me what I'm blind to, because we think we know what's going on, but there's, you know, they always say, you know what you know, but then there's a lot of what you don't know, you don't know. And I think that's where I believe that's where the tarot lives in that space of the blind spots, of the what we don't know. And when you're dealing with really deep, intense decision-making processes like the one I'm going with, the Celtic cross pull has been and still is. Like, I pulled it last week, and almost every day I go back and I'm like, okay, gosh, what am I really afraid of? What outcome is it? You know, what's might be happening now, and it's helping me calm down and realize this is just temporary, because the final outcome of my Celtic cross pull was judgment, was justice. Sorry, and so even though I see the struggles along the way, I have this final outcome of that. You know, there's light at the end of the tunnel. Now, mind you, there's 78 cards, and the Celtic cross pull gives me 10. You know, they all could have been the really difficult ones. You know, but it's really
Because all the ones you were afraid of, you know, when you were younger. Like,
but you know what's funny is maybe I just don't see the difficult ones as difficult anymore, because even though I got, you know, the 10 of Wands, and I got the 3 of Swords, and I got an upside down 3 of Cups, I was really able to see the lesson in it, and from that I'm able to accept. And it's strangely, you know, it's really helped me to breathe through this time right now. And that Celtic cross pull is going to stay until I'm done. You know, I have a picture of it, and I'm going to refer to it for this particular situation. I don't pull again for the same question. I work.
We'll get another card. Nah, another card. Yeah.
Exactly. No. I work with the cards until I'm done. And I do also believe that when you resist something, that's usually a sign that there's even, like, it's that important for you to listen to the lesson. So I also trust the feeling of resistance as a message of, you know, pay attention. This is real. Don't avoid it. So
Exactly. Yeah, that speaks a little
So
bit to what I was talking about earlier, the resistance to those things that are actually meant to move you
yes,
forward, like that
Evolve.
as well.
yeah, the
And
spiritual
evolve.
unease.
The spiritual, maybe I coined a term. Does that actually exist?
Yeah.
Maybe we just coined a term here
I like
today
it.
that spiritual unease. Yes, as a positive. How about positive spiritual unease? I like that even better.
Yeah.
I
All
got,
right.
I got reverse butterflies, something like that. I don't know, but no. So first of all, I mean, there are a couple spreads in the book here that you can go by. Some 1 card, 3 card Celtic cross that you mentioned, Jana, and a couple things about what you said. There's a big movement. This is a great book, but and it has everything you would need for your learning. But a lot more people are reading intuitively with their decks and things like that. And I think this is it's a perfect intuitive deck as well, because there's so much going on. There's so much you can pull out of it, as well, that even just 1 card, you can just take that 1 card and really look into the different aspects of it there when these are powerful. So so yes, I mean there's just so many things that are happening here right now that and there was I was in a course one time that was given by Mary Greer. I'm familiar with her, and so she was really going into those things that you might not notice at first, but then it's just oh, that's the main thing. So whatever you focus on is that main thing you're supposed to focus on. So maybe it's her red shoes and the flowers in the red shoes, or something like that. It's what does that mean for me? And so just picking out those different aspects of that for myself. And I come from a art history and religious studies background, basically, and so so tarot in a sense to me is a kind of spiritual art, right? And so so we can take a painting, and you might take a Michelangelo, and it's all these different symbolic things in a certain tradition. Well, this is a tradition that might be more universal, where you can say okay, this is what I meant to see through the grand the great the great spirit, through the universe, what the universe means for me to see, basically. So that's how I treat it. And so even 1 card is enough, but 10, geez, there's so much to pick apart. And that's a great, angle to take, and I really, with Celtic Cross, I mean, that's going to be your reading until it's done, and you'll know when it's done.
Yeah, my tarot teacher that I studied with told me when I was first learning tarot to take 1 card a day or do a 1 card pull and then experience the day, and then it will let you know, come back at the end of the day to that card, and what does that card, how did that energy of that card emerge in that day?
Sure.
And eventually, when you do that, you really start to have an intuitive connection to a particular card. And so now I know every time I pull an upside down chariot card, it means car trouble. For me, there's certain cards that's what happened. Every time I ended up pulling that card, there was something wrong with my car or someone's car. And so it's interesting. And so the 2 ways that I really started to learn my cards and tarot in general was doing that 1 card pull, and then also sleeping with 1 card under my pillow. And so I did that to learn the major arcana. I went to sleep with one of the major arcanas under my pillow, because she believed that within the night it would send messages to you. I don't know if that's true or not, but I did that, and that was another way I learned the tarot.
Okay, all right. Yeah, you're speaking to another aspect of the flip side of just the intuitive nature, and that is making the card your own. So what the Fool means for one person might mean something very different for someone else through that experience. The more that they use it, and so you have to just use it to figure out what that is. So the guidebook is great for a beginning point, and it may and those meanings might resonate, with an individual. But over time, I think if someone really continues to use it, then that may shift. It may or may not shift, but it could. And I think more and more teachers are expressing the fact that you have to be open to the possibility that the death card might not always mean change. Maybe it need to water your lawn. I don't know. I mean, so it needs to maybe it'll mean something a little bit different for different people, as well. So that's interesting. Car trouble. No cars.
Don't drive those days.
Don't drive on
I
the
think obviously it's a combination of, the traditional meaning of the chariot, right? Which is
right. Right.
direction and guiding your
I think
life and this.
right.
And then,
All
so
right.
I would have the traditional meaning in mind at the beginning of the day. And then at the end of the day, kind of see how that came in real life in practical terms. And of course,
Sure.
there's sometimes, in my opinion, sometimes these cards are very shallow or just surface level things like literally car trouble. And sometimes it's a bigger, right? It's a bigger question. Like if you get the reverse chariot, it could also mean you are struggling with the direction of your life, right? You're struggling
Mhm.
with something. So, again, to make these cards your own and to understand how they're showing up is a lifelong process.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, we don't have a lifetime right now, but I like to do card readings. And this is a great conversation, by the way. I'm really enjoying it. So I do like to do a card reading if you're open to that for during these events. And so I'll let one of you do that because if I always do it, it can go wrong.
I did it before the call with
Oh,
the
you did?
pendulum,
Okay,
Rita,
sure. Go ahead.
in case you
Just in
guys are
case.
interested.
Oh, if you
Sure.
I
want.
did
Yeah.
one.
Okay, that's fine.
I'll let Rita interpret.
Okay.
Okay. I think you asked about, like, for the world, what to think about this
Yes.
spring, correct?
Yes, exactly.
Okay, so what I do is I also use a pendulum. I don't pick. I'll literally let the pendulum narrow it down to one card. I'll split the stacks with my question until I land on one card. And it's been awesome because I can get completely out of my way. I'm just asking the question and I'm waiting for a yes or no. Anyway, so for the people, what was the question again, Chris? Just to make it clear, so when I bring it up, people know. Your question was, what do
Question:
people?
What's ahead for the spring? What's ahead for the spring?
Okay, so this is what I pulled. Temperance. I know it's backwards here. It is the major arcana, the 14th card.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And it was upright. So, Rita, what would you say to that one?
Well, I mean, temperance is always the need for balance, right? I mean, I think there is a lot of stuff going on. Everybody's a little bit off kilter. The world seems crazy. And for me, the temperance card is always about balancing, knowing the need to keep yourself balanced, right? To keep yourself really in heart center and balance is how I read that card. And
Chris?
John, I don't know if you want to add something to it of what your
Well,
hit
I'd be
was.
curious what Chris knows about the temperance card, the 14th card, or I don't know. I'm still learning the major arcana, and temperance is not something I'm very familiar with. I will look at our book though, and if Chris wants to add anything, of course, I'd be
Well, temperance
curious.
comes at an interesting point, between the devil and the tower, right? And so, that's a precarious position to be in, really. So
Mm,
that takes a fair amount of will to guide between, two. So basically, coming out of a challenging situation or somewhere where people haven't been thinking clearly, perhaps, but then moving forward into a real sea change, but being prepared for what that sea change is. That's what I would say. And so, there may be shifts, that are coming, but if we're prepared for them, then we can actually, ride it through and be better on the other side. That's what I would get out of it. So,
Well, I looked at our booklet, and I think what stands out for me is it talks about means not losing one's temper, self
mhm.
control. Um, wow. I don't know. I don't. That somehow resonates for me, but I also think it's about you know not losing one's temper is also about being, that means you're being respectful of other people around you. You can feel, but it's it's important, I think, to cultivate respect, because the next thing that is written here, this is also a card of vibration, the need to vibrate and balance. So you can feel, but if you can control your temper, then you can also control your vibration, with how, because it's your vibration, it's what you do with your own body, and then and it's how you vibrate into the world. that could be disrespectful or respectful. And to me, that's where I see it also with the balance. But the balance starts with what are you adding to the pot? You know, what are you adding to the world? So start with yourself and be part of the balance. But are you going to tip it by losing control, or are you going to be balanced first? And then add in a way that's maybe less dramatic.
Yeah, right. I think that kind of goes along with what I was saying there too. Is it's coming in to understand yourself better and having that self control. And having that balance. To be able to really face what's going to be next, what comes ahead. Really, I think it's a good good thing for anybody to take to heart to be able to move forward. And I think it's with the situations that we're in. Yes, go what.
Sorry. The positive thing is there's a sun. This person is not alone. There's a little crab. And they're having a cocktail. All right. So there's a little bit of fun happening here. And, you see the third eye, right? There's wisdom and there's also sovereignty. This person has, some amount, they're not perfect. This is not a perfect person, but as a whole picture, there's a wholeness. And so I don't know. I feel like people, maybe we don't have to worry as much as we do too, this spring. So
I think so. I think people have learned a lot through the last couple of years, really, and they've realized what's really important, what matters, and that things do get better over time, And I like how you kept going with that too. That kind of speaks to what I was saying earlier. It's like you can just take one card. It's like, oh yeah, look at the sun. Look at this. See, there's that part too. That's great.
Chris, I just want to share this reminded me of one of the things we did after the paintings were done and I had gotten my download is I had Jana over and I gave her a painting at a time and Jana would give her own hit what she would get from this, and she'd go into characters and voices and what the card was saying, and it was so funny. My husband came from his office. He said, wow, I had to come out here. She is the most creatively interesting person I've ever met because she had a story for, it was so wonderful to see my cards through her, her interpretation, her immediate reaction to him. So that just reminded me of that when she was giving the interpretation of the temperance.
It's a once in a lifetime thing too, but next time maybe film that, right? That might be good.
Yeah.
Totally.
No.
Don't do that. So, well, I'm glad this is finally here, the deck. And so what's lying ahead for both of you? What's next? Now we have this, it's been birthed.
Yeah, so we're working on an oracle deck. I've been painting furiously on that. I started painting before the whole COVID madness. So it's been over 2 years since I started that deck, and it's largely an animal spirit, but also I would call them creatures because some of them are not necessarily animals in this plane of existence. So there's a lot of fantastical beings in this deck too, but it's an oracle card deck. This time it's painted on canvas as opposed to paper. The tarot deck was painted on large 19 by 24 paper. This one was canvas, so it took a lot longer. Takes a lot more paint to do on canvas, but it's about done in the paintings. I have a couple more to go, and then Jana and I are gonna do our magic and develop those cards together and the whole package again. So we're really excited about that.
So. Jana, how about you?
Well,
it's interwoven together.
The new project. I mean, it's natural. I mean, she gifted me at the end of this project with my own painting. We had a nice when we were done together on what we did. We were having a drink, and then she takes me to her car and opens up her trunk, and she shows me this 36 by 36 canvas. And I was moved because she had given me a couple, and there were these creatures, and they were equal. There wasn't one dominating the other. There wasn't one person giving to the other and them receiving. They looked like they were both giving and both receiving.
Yeah.
It was, and it was all black and white.
Mm-hmm.
And it was so different than anything she'd done before.
Mm-hmm.
And I loved it. She's like, I don't even know if you're going to like it. And I'm like, I love it. And you made me into a bunny. Like, it just felt so personal, and I have it hanging, and I look at it all the time, and I wonder when it's, when it'll be manifested, or is it manifesting now, or it's really always been very interesting. But from that, she's been doing these black and white versions, instead of it being all colorful. And I think that I think that people are going to.
It's a really good compliment to this deck.
It's definitely still style, but it's wonderful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I'm really excited about doing it.
That's exciting. I feel that there might be another. There might be another red envelope coming, maybe.
That's right.
So I'll make sure I look out.
I already thought of something as a little bit of a trick. So we'll see if you'll notice.
Okay.
We'll see if you don't, smash it in between a couple books.
But I didn't see them here. So yeah, I can't wait. I can't look for that. So now, if people want to get in touch with you and follow you, are you on social media and websites, or how do we get in touch with Rita?
Yeah, I have a website, ritaroseart.com, and I'm on Instagram at Rita Rose Art. On Instagram, I don't really use Facebook, so Instagram's really the only place I'm going on social media, and people can go directly to the website if they want to see more of my art, including some of the oracle cards as well.
I can be reached. I think my website is in the book. I'm not sure. But you can reach me through Rita. I mean, I'm not really on social media. I know that's strange for being in my field, but I've basically worked by referral only pretty much my whole career. So, but I love working with people. I'll answer anybody. So if anybody's, I don't know.
Okay. Yeah, right.
Skylitphotographydesign.com is the site.
Wonderful. So, this is available. The Outsider Art Tarot is on redfeathermbs.com. It's also available it's getting out worldwide. It's mostly stateside right now, but wherever you want to get your decks, you can find it anywhere you want to. So, I really appreciate you both coming for this here, Rita and Jana, and thanks to everybody who really tuned in today. It's always fun to do these, but this was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it, and it's going a lot longer. Yes, there we are.
Thank you so much, Chris. And we said this before we were on the air, but we are so pleased with what Red Feather did with our deck. It's just such a quality packaging. The design is quality. It's such a great value. We're so happy with the final product, and we really appreciate it. And thank you for taking us on.
No, my pleasure. You just to echo that. It really is work of its art unto itself, really, and for what it is. I mean, it could it can be in the museum, and maybe it will be. You never know. So you never know where these things will go. And every portion of it is beautiful. And you're beautiful souls, and thank you for being a part of this, and everybody who tuned in. And I hope you all have a wonderful day. Take care now.
Thank you so much.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.